High School, home of the Greenville Greenway, and our wonderful host, the IMTV. And this is our very first show. We're very excited about it. We have somebody very distinguished that we're going to talk to here in just a bit. There are a few things I want to cover. I did say this is our first show, and you know this comes to us by the grace of what we've been doing for our. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our inaugural show. Our first show here, our first TV show. I am Mike Maloney, Vice Chairman of the Greenville Veterans Memorial Park and Digital Library. Hopefully by now you've seen our wonderful talent show. We'll talk about that more in a little bit. But I wanted to welcome you all here. We're very happy to be here. We're here at Greenville Senior High School, IMTV, home of the Greenville Greenway. This is actually my alma mater. So I'm particularly proud to be here. This all came about by what we're doing with the park. If you're familiar with the park at all, we're trying to attach a digital library to it. Well, we're already doing that through partnerships. And we had a little fundraiser there on Halloween, the talent show. In all that, we hooked up with our folks here from IMTV. Which made that partnership very important to us because now every Friday morning we're going to interview a very distinguished veteran or a veteran's family. It's all part of our idea of documenting as many stories as we can. And we're going to build our library one step at a time by just shaking hands, by linking up with people that also do this and so forth, and build this huge library. And then, of course, down the road, you're going to hear this plan over and over again, trust me. 5 years down the road, we hope to have our digital memorial, first of its kind. On the talent show was very, very successful. It was very successful in that it has already put the community together in many different facets, like this, like our partnership with IMTV. IMTV gets the practical exercise, the students get the practical exercise and the practical examples of filming things for real and doing stuff for real and helping us market too. So it's a win-win for everybody and we're just very pleased about it. Also, the talent show didn't make the money we're actually working on, but we did have enough to buy our new projector that we wanted anyways. We just have this screen next. But we appreciate everybody's support with that, and we'll see you next year on that, even bigger and even better, we hope. For some reason you didn't see the talent show, it is on YouTube, check it out. It's about 2 hours long, get yourself some popcorn and hot dogs and so forth, and off you'll go. Our show, I said this is our inaugural show, and I'll tell you what the title of the show is. And this is the first time anybody's heard this title. The title of the show is Never Stop Serving, because the idea of this show is not only to show you the great veterans we have, is to show you that those veterans, and most like them, never stop serving. We never stop serving because we've taken an oath. We've taken an oath back in the day, and that oath has no expiration date. So that's it. We're going to start off our brand new show with a very distinguished guest here. I'm going to let him do most of the talking because that's the idea to when we interview veterans is to have them do most of the talking and tell him all about ourselves. We're going to pick his brain to tell him so he can tell us everything that he possibly can about himself. I will tell you that he's got a very long resume. I'm pretty sure he's a Vietnam vet, but again, he can go through that. And I know he has a long resume with the VFW. I know that he's done almost every job in the VFW you can imagine at the post and district level. And now I believe he's looking for a job at the state level. And again, we'll have him tell you. So it's my honor and privilege to present to you Jack Brankamp. Thank you, Jack, very much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, thank you so much for being here, sir. Well, first, let's start off. Where do you come from?
I'm originally from Cincinnati.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to St. Xavier High School, and I graduated from there in 1964. And I went to the University of Dayton, so that's how I got up into the Dayton area. I graduated from UD in 1968. I majored in marketing and minored in economics. So I got out of there in April of 1968, and a little bit after that, that's when the Vietnam War was really going hot and heavy. Tet had just happened in January and February of '68, so the Army came looking for me, and I'd gotten married a month after I graduated from UD. Got married in May of '68, and then the summer the Army came looking for me and wanted me to join up with them, and I decided I took the physical and decided I didn't want to go in the Army, so I enlisted in the Air Force.
Oh,
so
well, all right, we won't hold that against you.
So I delayed enlisted in the Air Force. That was in September or October of '68. So I went in there in January of 1969. So with most of us in the Air Force, going in the Air Force back then, I went to Lackland Air Force Base, which is in San Antonio. So I spent 6 weeks down there in January through March of '69. And then when I get out of Lackland, I went to Shepherd Air Force Base in Wichita Falls, Texas, about 400 or 500 miles up the road there in Texas. I was in the Air Passenger Specialist course, which was a very, very short course. And we all got out of there a week early because it was such an easy course and all of us aced it. So they let us out of there a week early. So I came back to Dayton.
Now, is that MAC flights? Is that what that is?
Uh-huh.
Air passenger,
yes.
MAC flights, okay.
So I got orders for McChord Air Force Base, Washington, Tacoma, Washington. And so I went home on leave, and then let's see, probably May or June of 1969, we drove out to Tacoma, Washington. Took 4 days to drive out there, 700 miles a day, and with stops in Des Moines and Boise and can't remember the other place we stayed, and Cheyenne, and it just took us 4 days to get out there. So we went to Tacoma, and McChord Air Force Base is one of the military airlift command bases, and we had have an aerial port, which means that we had flights to different places, taking all the troops to different places. We had flights, we had channels to Elmendorf Air Force Base in Anchorage, Alaska. We had flights there 2 times a week. We had flights to Kempo Air Base in Seoul, Korea. All the people going to Korea came through McChord, and we had flights to Cam Ranh Bay in Vietnam. So I was there at McChord for 18 months. It was one of the nicest places I've ever been. It rained a lot, but the only snow I ever saw was up in the Cascade Mountains off to the east. So it was a very nice place to be. Most of the time I worked in the protocol department. We took care of the colonels and above that came through the base on the flights coming in or going out. We had after about 6 months being there, we had a brand new passenger terminal, and so we took care of the colonels and above that came through the base, and we took care of the Korean foreign nationals that came over to the United States to go to training around the United States. So that was very interesting. I met some great colonels and generals, and probably the neatest person I met was back in 1970. Senator Henry Jackson he was senator from Washington. He was from Tacoma, Washington, so he came home on a trip home, and he flew in on a C-54, which is a plane was just probably going out of commission about that time. So he flew in there. So I drove my '69 Chevy staff car out to the plane and met him, and I put his nickname was Scoop. So I put Senator Jackson in the back seat of the car and drove him to some restaurant in Tacoma. So he had a speaking engagement. So here's Jack and Scoop riding through Tacoma, talking about my life story and everything. And a year or two after that, that's when he ran for president. So it was a very very nice experience. So I was at McChord for a year and a half, and then I got orders for Vietnam. Well, originally I had orders for Cam Ranh Bay, but my wife was pregnant at the time. This was June or July of 1970.
This was your first child?
The first child.
Mm-hmm.
So my daughter was born at Madigan General Hospital, which is at Fort Lewis, which is right next to McChord. They call it it's Joint Base McChord, Fort Lewis and McChord. Now you got all these joint bases. So I was at Fort Lewis. So then a month after my daughter was born, I got orders for Bien Hoa in Vietnam. So went home on leave. it's kind of scary thinking about it now, and a lot of things I did. But thinking about this now, we drove straight through. We left Tacoma on a Friday afternoon at 4:30, and we drove straight through and got back to Dayton at noon on a Monday.
Wow.
And drove straight through and pulling a U-Haul trailer. So I went home on leave for a month, and then I went to Benoit, and so I was there in November of 1970. And initially, I worked in passenger service. We manifested and processed all the passengers on the flights, the out-country flights. So we had flights from Benoit to Travis Air Force Base near San Francisco, and we had flights to McGuire Air Force Base in New Jersey, and so we processed all the men and women coming back home. We also had in-country flights, and I dealt with those initially. And we had flights all over Vietnam, and on C-130s and C-123s and C-7 Caribous and whatever else they were flying. But those are the big three. And so my first month there on Christmas Day, we had Bob Hope landing at Benoit, and he was doing a show at Long Binh. You can see that video on YouTube. It's on there somewhere. And so I was in the front office there, and we processed flight manifests for the flights. We had key punch machines, so I was in there punching key punch cards, which would go over to the accounting machine in the other office and generate flight manifests to put on the flight, the list of passengers for the flights. So I did that. So Bob Hope was about 50 feet away from me, and all the people he had with him, Gloria Loring and Les Brown and his Band of Renown, and a few other people. And but I never got to see the show. I did watch it a couple of weeks ago on YouTube. So
do you have any pictures or memorabilia of that yourself?
I do, and unfortunately I thought I had the right video. I brought the wrong disc, and it's an empty disc. But I have a video. Your
own personal video?
Yeah, of all my pictures, and I put.
Well, you can share that with us later, right?
Yeah, I can.
Absolutely. That'll be awesome.
Oh, if I can figure out how to upload it to YouTube or something, or
we'll
put it on
you.
Facebook, I'll do
we'll
that.
Help you. That's part of what the park's doing, and the Video Library's doing.
I'm going to do that sometime. So. That's okay. I heard Bob Hope out there and everything, but I never got to see the show. So and it was very interesting. That day we had 3 turnaround flights out there, which mean planes came in full. So we had 3 planes with 219 passengers each came in, and then they got turned around. We offloaded all passengers, the baggage and everything, and we reloaded all the people going back home. So we had about 1,200 people going in and out of there in about 3 hours, and we turned them out, got them out in a record time. We never had any delays or anything, and that's with Bob Hope on the ground. So that's the kind of stuff we did, and I have to say, I was in Detachment 5, 8th Aerial Port Squadron, and we did a heck of a job doing the job that we had to do. Everybody did their job over in Vietnam, no matter. Fortunately for us, we never saw combat. We were in a support mission, and we were at the passenger terminal at Benoit and dealing with people and getting them into the country or getting them out. One of my main jobs is working in protocol, and I was also contract coordinator. I was the Air Force representative, and we also had a civilian representative dealing with the contracted flights. All the flights that came in were Department of Defense, Military Airlift Command contracted flights. So we had American Airlines and United and Seaboard, World International and TIA and Brankamp, all the airlines. Some that don't even exist anymore, but they came in, and we had DC-9s, DC-8s that came in, which held 219 passengers. We had 707s, which had 165, except Pan Am, which had 164. I'm not sure exactly why. I think it's where the restroom was set back in the back. And then, so those are the flights that we had. We also had some DC-9s that were the Aerovac flights that came in, that bringing people into Benoit, taking them over to the Long Binh Hospital. So we dealt with that. As I was saying, one of my jobs was I was the person that would go up and meet the plane, just like you go to Dayton Airport and somebody's up there and they open the door and they go up and they get the flight manifest. Well, I would get on the microphone and give my welcome to Vietnam speech and my rocket and mortar attack speech. Well, when they open the door, all the people, when you get into Vietnam, they open the door, and you smell the smell of Vietnam, and you feel the hot air blasting you when you open the door. And then you got somebody like me coming up and tell them this, in case of rocket and mortar attack, go down the stairs as quickly as you can, lay down on the flight line, and stay there till the attack is over. So I probably scared the poop out of a few people, coming into Vietnam. So it was a very interesting thing. So and I was the one that got to. Doesn't seem like a big thing here, but I was the person who got to go up and talk to the stewardesses, and you didn't see too many American females in Vietnam at the time, and most of them were just about all of them were nurses. So it was nice talking to the female stewardesses. So I was there for a year, from November to November, and we had a really good time. I wish I could show you my video. I don't have any war stories to tell you except my own personal ones, us traveling around Vietnam and doing stuff. If you think about what we did then and now, we would like, why did I do that? We'd go traveling around Vietnam like we were in the States. We'd go down to the South China Sea to go swimming in a place called Vung Tau, and we'd go to Saigon and stuff like that. So it was pretty easy for us to get down there. We could get a C-7 that was going down there and get on the plane, get manifested for that flight, and go down there. We could, if we were down at Vung Tau, we'd get a flight to come down and pick us up and take a bunch of aerial port people back to Benoit. So we got around the country in pretty good ways. So I was at Vietnam for a year. Left there in November of 1971, and I was very fortunate. I got orders from Eglin Air Force Base, Fort Walton Beach, Florida. I was in a career field that was
the Air Force always has those tough bases.
Yeah, well, I was fortunate. Some of the guys got orders for Minot and Maelstrom and stuff like that, in North Dakota or South Dakota or Montana, and everybody wanted jealous of me, and so I'm going to Florida, and they're going to, up the great north up there. So the career field I was in was air passenger specialist. Well, it was at the time a very important career field, and so they didn't need us anymore in the Air Force, because at the time I was there, the Vietnam War was winding down and more people were leaving than coming in. So when I came back to the States, I became an admin specialist and at Eglin, and I worked in the electronic 3246 test wing, the electronics test division. And it's a very important thing in the Vietnam War, because the project engineers that I dealt with the electronic countermeasures, the electronic countermeasures, the jamming of the enemy's radar. So they did tests on all their equipment and all the new things the new toys that they were playing with, and I handled all their classified material. And so that was a pretty neat job. And I have to laugh. It's like when I got there, it's like they sent me, I had to go to typing school for a whole year. I had to go to typing 1, and I didn't make 35 words a minute, so I had to go to typing 1 again. And then I finally made it through typing 1 the second time, and I got to go to typing 2. And of course, by the time I got through typing 2, it was time to leave. So I left there in January of 1973. And of course, a month or 2 later, that's when the peace treaty was signed and Vietnam was over. But I was safely in Fort Walton Beach at the time. So Fort Walton Beach was really nice. You really don't appreciate being down there, living down there. It's like I lived like 2 blocks from the Gulf, and it's very beautiful down there, but I hardly ever went to the beach. So, but we had a great organization and worked with a great bunch of people and the project engineers that I worked with, and the important job that they did. And so once I got out of Vietnam, let's see, well, I was at Eglin. Well, I got out of the service at Eglin, and I came back home. And so I wasn't sure exactly what I was going to do, so I came home and I went out interviewing. So somehow I ended up in the restaurant business, and my first job in 1973 was I was a manager, store manager for Casanos, and had some stores in the Dayton area and 2 or 3 stores, and I went to the Upper Valley Mall.
Multi-unit?
Yeah. Well, then I was just single unit managing. Then I got promoted to district manager at Casanos, and so it was probably like 1975. So I had all the stores around here. Actually, I had the original Greenville store here back, probably about that time.
I remember. Right.
And I had Sydney and Greenville and Huber Heights and stuff like that. And I had different areas. So I did that for like probably 3 or 4 years. And it was about 78. It was time to go and move on. So I went to work for a bunch of other different organizations, different companies, and you name it, either I worked there or interviewed there. So I was at Casanos and Wendy's and Ponderosa and Bob Evans and Little York Pizza, Rally's, Steak and Shake, Richard's Pizza in Trenton. So I did a lot of them. So I thought we're going up to like 1995 right now. Well, no, I worked at a Subway. I worked for Speedway, which had opened up Subways inside the Speedways. One was in Brookville and Wilmington at 71 and 68, and one in Needmore, the Speedway there. So they decided to put Subways inside the Speedway. So I did that for about 2 years, and I opened up 3 stores, 3 Subways inside the Speedways, and then had an opportunity to buy a Subway. So I bought the Subway on Harshman and Valley, across from catty corner from Stebbins High School. And I was there for 6 years. I had that, and it was time to go from there because it couldn't make any money at Subway because Subway liked to dump stores on top of stores, so within a mile, and so there's no money in it. So I got out of that. So I went to work for. I thought it's time to get out of the restaurant business. So I took a job with ADT selling security systems. Well, that was really bad because they put you on a draw, so you're only making 175 a week, and then that's for like 2 or 3 weeks. And then you're on you're functional, and you got to go out and start selling stuff and making your money on commission. So that wasn't going to work out. So I got out of that. So I went to work for this other company that I originally interviewed with, the Richard's Pizza in Trenton. So I was down there for 8 weeks, and that was a nightmare. Not only the drive was like 45 miles each way, but it just wasn't what I expected. And the owners decided that they were going to whack labor and cut labor, and Jack was the glorified pizza maker, and that wasn't what I envisioned myself doing. So I got out of that, and then I went to work for. I got a job with Steak and Shake, and I was there for a year, and I was at the Beaver Creek store, and it was very nice, except third shift was a nightmare. It was like every night was Halloween night at Steak and Shake. It was really bad. So I got out of there, and so I got a job so I finally got out of the restaurant business and went to work for Walmart. They were hiring assistant managers, so they hired about 30 or 40 of us, and we all trained up at the Sydney store for about 4 or 5 months, and it was a very, very neat thing to do. And then we had an opportunity in November to go down to the Lebanon store. We opened up a brand new store from scratch down in Lebanon, and got to do that for 2 weeks. And everybody made a boatload of money because even though we were on salary, we weren't in management, so we were on an hourly basis. So we were working about 80 hours a week, so we were making, bringing home like about $900 a week, all this overtime. So it was pretty nice. Then real world hit, so I went to Troy, and I was at the Troy store for about 3 years. I managed district. I was assistant manager of several different departments. I had at the last I had electronics and cameras. And I also had the back room and the unloading. So at that time, Walmart decided they started whacking assistant managers. We had 12 assistant managers when I first started, and 2 co-managers and a manager, general manager, and they started whacking assistant managers. So I got downgraded to a department manager, and I went to Miller Lane in Dayton, and that was a nightmare because I had the consumables department, which meant that those are the items that people buy every day. And it's the toilet paper and the soap and stuff like that, and paper towels. And so I was in paper and chemicals. And that was in one corner of the store. Then in the far opposite corner of the store, I had pets. So people are buying their pet food every day, and you had a lot of big bags of dog food, and also had the the aquariums, and we probably had 24 aquariums there. I had to take care of the fish, and it was like you had to pick your poison every day. Which department are you going to work in, and which one are you going to let go to pot for a day, you know? So it was not a pleasant experience. So I got out of there and wasn't sure what I was going to do. So I had one more interview, and that didn't work out. So I decided my wife and I decided I was going to retire and get my Social Security. So that was in 2009, and so I started drawing Social Security, and it really came fast. Like 2 weeks later, I got my first check. It's like you know, sometimes you have to wait a long time. So I got that, and at that time I belonged to the VFW in Huber Heights for 20 years. So in 2009, I decided.
Wait, when did you join the VFW?
I joined the VFW in 1996.
So after all that busyness of managing here and managing there, you're still in the VFW.
Yeah, I wasn't involved in anything or any offices or anything. So I didn't think involved in any offices till like 2000, 2001 when I had my subway. So I was able to pretty much do what I wanted to do.
What was your first office?
I think I was probably adjutant, and then I went up the chairs at the post to. I think I ran for junior, and somebody else ran against me, and I lost by 2 votes. So the next year I ran for senior. I didn't run for junior. I just went up to senior the next year. I won that, and then I was post commander in 2003 to 2005, and so I did that, and then for a while when I was working at Walmart, I couldn't control my schedule and everything, so I didn't do a whole lot. I was I think I was probably adjutant or maybe one of the chairmen. I can't remember what. And so in 2000, about 5 years ago, I got in the chairs for the district. So I started out as the surgeon and then the judge advocate. Now as junior vice commander, senior vice commander. I think one year we all jumped up a chair because somebody had to quit. So we all jumped up. So we got out of there like a year. We moved up ahead a year early. So in last year, I was the district commander of 35 posts in 7 counties, which was Clark County, Champaign, Miami, Preble, Dark, Montgomery, and there's one more I can't remember. But anyway, there's 7 and 35 posts at the time. There was 36, and we had to take one post out because they just weren't doing what they were supposed to be doing. So I left with 35 posts. We also had the hospitality house at the VA hospital, which we decided earlier this year to get rid of that because it was more of a burden than what it was worth, and it was cost us more money than what we were taking in. And so we got rid of that. And just recently this week, I found out earlier, a couple of months ago, an event I went to, the assistant director of the VA told me that the Fisher House was taking over the hospitality house, and it was just on the news the other day. So I'm glad to see that's happening. So they have more money to do that than we did. So I was district commander last year, and I got to do a lot of neat events and some not so neat events. If you want to talk about doing a funeral for a Air Force veteran who was murdered and that she couldn't get buried in a VA cemetery, and we were able to go to Columbus and get 2 checks for $8,300 and make sure that she got buried in a cemetery. We paid for her funeral and the funeral home and everything, and that was in April of last year. And we also got her a grave marker. She couldn't get buried at the VA cemetery because she was in reserves and she had accumulated over 2 years in active duty. So according to the VA rules, she couldn't get the benefits that all veterans, no matter what, should get. So it was 2 days before her funeral we found out that the VA wouldn't bury her. So the VFW provided the pallbearers and anything that the family needed, and we got her buried. And we also got her a grave marker because the VA wouldn't pay for that either. So all the posts in the district ponied up, and we collected $1,400 to get her a grave marker. Unfortunately, her son is still missing, and we have the ability, if they ever find Zayden McKnight, that the VFW of Ohio Charities will pay for his funeral also. So we were on TV a lot last year and a lot of interviews and stuff like that, and it was a pretty calming and really sad experience. But we did what we were supposed to be doing, and it's like veterans taking care of veterans and continuing the work and serving our veterans, as we mentioned earlier at the beginning of the show.
Never stop serving.
Yeah.
We never stop serving. We're going to take a little break here at the moment, Jack. Reason is, and we can get used to this every Friday morning, because honestly, we're going to practice this show, and you'll see this delayed. But eventually, we'd like to show this live Friday mornings. Give them some exercise on that. Also, give me some exercise. And you never know. We might get 1 or 2 people to tune in the morning and watch us. But we're going to take a brief break here because we're about to get the school bell, and as soon as that's passed through, we'll continue on. First show, we're very excited about our first show, like I said, and excited to have Jack here. Jack was just telling us before the break about the district, how they came together. And if you didn't know, first thing, Jack was talking about chairs and going through the chairs. In the VFW, traditionally, you go through the chairs. You start at surgeon, and then you work your way up through the chairs every year. So in other words, you serve as surgeon a year, and then so forth every year. That's the idea it's supposed to be. Sometimes, though, nowadays, because of involvement, you move quicker through the chairs, like he said, or whatever the case may be. But that's the idea. So one thing I wanted to mention before we get back into it is Jack is actually running for state surgeon out of our district. So in other words, he's running for state surgeon. If he becomes state surgeon, he goes through the chairs, he'll eventually be the state commander after he goes through the chairs. And so that's the idea, and we're very proud to have somebody out of District 3 running. And clearly I can't speak for the post or the district, but I can't imagine how he would not be endorsed by District 3. I endorse him, of course, perfectly as for surgeon. And we can talk more about that. But I want to make sure you knew about the chairs. Is that it's kind of a progression thing. If you could imagine being on a ship, being a sailor on a ship, and it's a great idea, because if you're steering it, if the commander or captain's steering it, and he or she's got 5 or 6 guys or gals behind him watching them steer the ship, and then the next year the person that's been watching them the longest is next. And then the next year, the person that's been watching her the longest comes up. It's a very good idea, mentorship, and this is time honored from the VFW, from its founding, to try to teach and how people progress. But I want to get back to Jack, and you were talking about how you all came together and got money from the Post. You got money from the Post to help this lady out that, for whatever reason, wasn't eligible for benefits. But you mentioned something about her son is missing. Can you expand on that, please?
Well, her son at the time was 4 years old. So at the time that Nichelle McKnight, N-I-C-H-E-L-L-E, McKnight was murdered, her body was found in the Stillwater River over by Chute Mill Road and Riverside Drive in Dayton, Harrison Township. And they found her body. She was murdered probably around March 25th or 26th of 2014. They found her body on April 10th in the river. And so during the investigation, they found out that her son was missing. So Zayden McKnight was missing. Nichelle evidently, or allegedly, whatever words you want to use, was murdered at this other girl's house in the basement. And that's about the last time that Zayden was, Z-A-D-E-N, Zayden was seen. And they've never found him. And so they never found his body or any idea of where he is. So he's almost 6 years old. Yeah. Okay. And so they don't know. The girl that was the other woman, the one that murdered her, he was involved in a shootout in Dayton in the end of March. And first they thought that the police shot him, but then they found out that he had shot himself, committed suicide. So then that's when they 2 weeks later they found Nichelle's body in the river. So and then of course this guy that would commit suicide, he had another girlfriend, and that's where Nichelle was murdered, in her basement. right now she's in the court system, and she's been charged and indicted with gross abuse of a corpse, and she got convicted of using Nichelle's credit cards and her debit cards and stealing all her money. So I imagine that's one of the reasons why Nichelle was murdered, because she found out what was going on, and that's my take on it anyway. The other girl, she's in the court system. She was supposed to have gotten sentenced last week, but they delayed it again. So it's kind of a really painful thing for the family going through, and the courts keep delaying this and putting it off and everything. So Zayden is still missing, and they had an organization that formed up, a lot of concerned citizens around Dayton last year, and they formed an organization called Team Zayden, and they set up search parties all around the Dayton area, all along the river, the Stillwater River and the Miami River, and I went to a lot of their events and stuff like that, and searching for Zayden, and never did find him. So they hooked up also with another national organization, which is called Texas EquiSearch. They were involved in the search. If you remember, Casey Anthony, it was the murder of her daughter down in Florida. They were involved in the search for that child also. So I met some of the people and worked with some of the people from Texas EquiSearch, and so they go out and they do some good work looking for people that are missing. So so her body was found on Friday, April 10th, and so myself and another VFW veteran, past District Commander Bob Cartel, and I, we decided, that's not right. We had heard that the VA was not going to bury her. So we went through the whole weekend and the next week, and the family had wanted to get her buried at the VA cemetery. Well, so her funeral was going to be on Friday, April 17th. So on Wednesday morning, I had talked to one of our members of the Huber Heights Chamber of Commerce, where I'm on the board of directors, and I talked to the sales rep at the cemetery, and she told me about the program they have at the Dayton Memorial Park Cemetery, where they will bury a veteran for free, give a plot to a veteran for free. So she had somehow gotten all the information, and she got the wheels rolling at the cemetery to get Nichelle buried there. Well, we had somebody working behind the scenes to try to make this happen, and that was Chief Perry Rogowski. She was at the time the command chief at the 445th Airlift Wing at Wright Pat, the reserve unit to which Nichelle belonged to. So Chief Rogowski was TDY down in San Antonio, so she was going in and out of meetings and trying to work with the VA to get Nichelle buried at the VA. Well, I found out about 4 o'clock on Wednesday afternoon that the VA was not going to bury her, and because the VA rules state that you have to have been in the service for 2 years on active duty, and she was in the reserves, but she didn't accumulate the enough active duty time, so they turned her down. So anyway, Bob and I, the next day, we contacted the cemetery and the funeral home and asked them to fax up their bills to our VFW of Ohio Charities in Columbus. So Bob and I went to Columbus the next day, and we met with Bill Seagraves, and within an hour of getting there, we had gotten 2 checks for $8,300 to pay for Nichelle's funeral. So that was on a Thursday morning, and then of course Friday, the next day, was her funeral. So and of course we contacted all the TV stations and everything, so we were bombarded by interviews all Wednesday afternoon, and so we went to the funeral home on actually the church on Friday, went to the funeral, and we provided the pallbearers and everything else at the flag put on her coffin because they didn't have a flag. So at the time, we did not have an honor guard set up. We were prepared. Our honor guard was prepared to go to the cemetery and perform the memorial for her at the cemetery, fire the guns, a 3-gun volley, and play taps, and also fold the flag. Well, when we found out that, they were trying to get the color guard from the Wright Pat to be out there. Well, first they weren't going to come, but we found out about noon after the funeral started that the Air Force honor guard was going to be at the cemetery, so that was good. So they were all out there, and plus they had about 50 Air Force people there at the funeral, also at the cemetery. So we did all the honors and everything at the cemetery. So we like I said earlier, we did what we're supposed to be doing as veterans, veterans taking care of veterans.
Yeah, excellent job, Jack. Thank you so much. Like I said, we never stop serving. You mentioned something earlier too that I have to go back and hit on. You were actually the guy on the plane that got on the plane and said, "Welcome to Vietnam," and gave safety briefings and all that stuff. That was you.
Hmm.
So, how many flights per day, and how many for the whole year you were there? Were you making announcements?
Well, some days we'd have 3 or 4 flights a day, all different times of the day. We worked 12-hour shifts, 7 to 7 in the day and 7 at night, 7 in the morning. And we had flights at all different times, people coming in and, getting people to come through. Of course, they had to, offload their bags and go through customs and everything. Same way getting on the plane. We had the security police, Air Force security police doing customs. So we probably have 3 or 4 planes a day. Some days we didn't have any, which is good because then we could, not have to do anything.
Yeah, when airplanes coming.
Yeah. So, but probably over the year, I was there about 350, 360 days. So we probably had 250, 300 planes.
Flights, right?
Flights.
So how many Vietnam veterans do you think heard your voice coming into the country?
Well, you take that times.
This is significant. I say this because I imagine there's people out there that don't realize, hey, that was Jack talking to me when we flew in there, because I'm sure a lot of them remember
well, if you take
landing.
let's
I
say,
remember landing in spots,
Yeah, let's say if you say 300 days, and there was 200 at the max. There was 219 people on the plane, so we're talking about 6,000 people.
That's significant. That to me is very significant.
Yeah.
That I'm going to remind people. I know the guy that used to make the announcement. See, yeah, I'm going to work.
And you'd
on
be
that.
surprised how many people I've met that I said, where did you go out of? Where did you come to? Benoit. I said, and they left from McCord. I said, well, I probably put you on a plane or took you off a plane.
Yeah.
So it's and I know 2 people at my post that were on Benoit the same time I was, which is really interesting. So.
Yeah. And it's interesting to note also, Jack brings up a very good point. A lot of times when people see veterans, they only think of foxholes and guns and so forth. Well, it's a fact that for every person with a rifle or something like that, there's 3 people in service to support of that particular combatant or whatever you want to say, because there's support and then service support, and it's all very, very important, and it's all serving. And, some is more dangerous than other. Of course, we recognize that, but his job in Vietnam was very important. When people landed, he was the direction sign of what was next and what was to come. And of course, thank you for your service, Jack.
Well, one of the logo on our squadron logo was a Tory gate, which is and it's on my pin here, but it's an arch that it's all the Hindu and temples in the Far East, in Korea and Japan. It's called a Tory gate, and one of the meaning behind a Tory gate, and that's the emblem of our pin, was to enter and to serve. And that's what we did. We helped them to enter Vietnam, and then they did the serving, and then we got to send them home too. So,
very interesting job, though, Jack. Very interesting.
One of the scary things, if we think about it, is like we supposedly had a gun locked up in the freight warehouse. We had air freight and air passenger. We all worked together, and there's different things in there. Air passenger, you have load masters and stuff like that. So we worked together with air freight, and they loaded the cargo on the planes and so like that. And you had fleet service. They took care of the restrooms on the plane and the food and stuff like that. So, but I had a gun locked up somewhere, but I never saw it the whole year I was there.
Air Force, they call it a gun. Army people get it. Last question for you, Jack, and then we'll let you go. Again, thank you so much for being on our first show. I had mentioned you're running for surgeon, which would put you in line for state commander. What do you think is the biggest challenge that faces not just the VFW veterans organizations today, and what's your plan to help with that?
Well, the biggest challenge is to getting veterans to join the VFW and to understand what the VFW is. The VFW is not a glorified cheap bar. The VFW is a veteran serving veterans. The mission of the VFW is to honor the dead by serving the living. So, a lot of us, that's all we do. We take care of, to help veterans. We help veterans get with benefits at the VA hospital and steer them in the right direction. help them get their documentation if they want to join the VFW. A lot of veterans don't know where their DD-214 is, which their documentation of their military service and where they were deployed to. So we have the capability of doing that. So and getting younger veterans to join the VFW, and one of the things that posts have to do to get younger veterans and females to join the VFW, you got to make your post veteran friendly. You got to have things for, you have younger veterans, and they could care less about sitting in the bar and drinking a cheap beer, or sitting around telling war stories. They're going to bring their family in, their kids, and they want something to do. You want to have dinners, and you want to have a pool table, and you have TV and stuff like that, where they can watch sporting events and stuff like that. And they can come in and they can play pool for free and stuff like that. You got to make it very veteran friendly. And you got to make it very friendly for your female veterans to join also. We've been fortunate at my post. We have quite a few female veterans and younger veterans, Iraqi and Afghani veterans, and the Desert Storm and Desert Shield. Historically, every year we're at the top of the new members in the state of Ohio, which is 360 posts. Last year we were second. We had 29 new members. But my job and what I do, I try to get out. You can't just sit in the post, wait for people to come in. Yeah, those people do come in and they want to join, but you got to go out to, in Huber Heights we have the farmers market, and set up a booth and talk to people, and you got to have a presence, and you got to be on social media and let people know what you do. You know, every day I'm going to some event and taking pictures, putting it on Facebook, on my timeline page and my personal page. And I have one for my Detachment 5 8th Aerial Port Squadron page, and I have about 15 of the guys I was stationed in Vietnam with on that page. So we share our pictures, and we learn what everybody's doing. I had one guy, if you look on my Facebook page, I'll give you one of my cards. That's why you look at my Facebook page. One of the guys, one of my roommates, he ran for governor of Rhode Island about 3 or 4 years ago. He didn't win, unfortunately, but we have some great veterans, and I know them all around the United States. And one of these days, they live in some neat places. We have a set of twins that I was stationed with, and one lives in South Carolina, one lives in Colorado. I'd love to get to Myrtle Beach sometime and go down there and see him. So it's been quite an experience, and every day is a neat thing. We share pictures every day. Every once in a while, one of my pictures that I sent out, it's on Facebook, gets fired back at me, and you know, it's like that's my favorite picture is me standing in the doorwell of a C-141 there in Vietnam. So we have some great guys that I was stationed with, and I wish I could have shown you my video. I showed you all of them, and we tried when
we can still show it up there though. We'll definitely get it on our site and
okay.
And our YouTube channel. We'll definitely get it out there. I'd like to see that that Bob Hope video. I imagine it's probably something.
Yeah, it's on. Look on Bob Hope at Long Bend 1970.
Yeah.
And you got.
I'd like to see that.
You had Gloria Loring, and you had you had, I can't remember the other girl's name, but it's pretty good. It's about a 15-minute video. It wasn't the whole long show. So, and you want me to cover the other thing I'm involved in?
Yes, please.
Okay.
You go ahead.
I'm also involved in the Huber Heights Veterans Project, and I'm on the kind of like the board of directors. We have an unofficial, I guess official now. It's like all the same people coming to the last 2 meetings. So the board of directors, and we're trying to get a veterans memorial in Huber Heights. And our director, Matt Truman, he's met with the city in Huber Heights. I think we've identified a place where we want the memorial back behind the police station called Sherman Park. It has the amenities that we need to put that in there to minimize the cost. And we're just starting to do some fundraising. The city is going to work with us on it, and it's city property, so we won't have to spend any money on buying any property or anything. And it's pretty much project ready. It has a grassy area, and it has parking, and it has close to a water hookup and electric hookup and stuff like that. So we're working on that, and so it's a work in progress. It might be 2 years down the road, but we're working on that. We're probably the only community around that doesn't have a veterans memorial, so we want to honor the veterans that are in Huber Heights. And we have a lot of veterans in Huber Heights because we're next to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. There's a lot of active active veterans and active duty people. Even though they're active duty, they're still veterans, and a lot of them have been deployed, and so we want to honor them also. So.
Yeah, the Greenville Veterans Memorial Library and the Greenville Veterans Memorial Park and Digital Library is a partner with this Huber Heights project. We spoke to Matthew a couple times and offered our support. Not we're fledgling ourselves, even though we have a park already. We're trying to put a monument in the park. That's what we're trying to do. They're actually trying to create a park from scratch, like was done with our Veterans Memorial Park back in '98. Jack Harless, Dr. Jack Harless set that up and was the chairman of that. He's still the chairman of what we're doing. He just makes me do all the work. Perfect chairmanship.
I might mention that I'm also involved with the Huber Heights Chamber of Commerce. I'm on the board of directors. I started as an ambassador. So earlier this year, I was named to the board of directors. So I'm involved in all the things that we do, and the voting member, and what we do, and I've been to a heck of a lot of events with the Chamber of Commerce, and I get to represent the VFW at the events, and I go to the Vandalia Chamber of Commerce, not their meetings, but their first Friday breakfast, and a lot of their we have a lot of networking things that we do with the Huber Heights and Vandalia, and these are perfect opportunities to go there and meet people in different communities, and I get to represent the VFW, and I've probably gotten 5 or 10 new members going to Chamber of Commerce meetings, just talking to people, and either the VFW or the auxiliary, and getting the word out. It's probably one of the worst things that the VFW does, letting people know what we do. So one of my missions is to get out and let people know what we do. So we have a local paper, the Huber Heights Courier, that the editor is very veteran friendly, and I can send him any story, especially if I write it and send him the pictures. He don't have to do anything. He doesn't have to do anything, and we'll get it in the paper and just letting people know what we do.
Yeah. Now, Jack, if last in, and then we'll let you go, I promise. If you're successful and you make surgeon, what year would you be state commander?
2020.
Now, wouldn't it be great, your state commander to come down and look at our digital memorial, the first one?
Yeah. And
then we go right there to Huber Heights and check their stuff out.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah.
That'll be our wish.
If I don't win this year, I'll run again next year. So I'm running against 2 other guys. One's from Columbus and one's from Ashtabula, and they're good candidates. And so any one of us do a job. So I'm kind of looking forward to it. I'm getting ready to go out traveling every 3 months. Get to go out traveling, visit different districts. And I've been able to go to 2 districts, District 7 and District I remember the other one, District 5. I was over near Marietta about a month ago, and I was over up in Brunswick, up by Cleveland, about 2 months ago. Unfortunately, most of the meetings happen on the same day, so I have to send somebody else out to go campaigning for me. So it's kind of a political thing, and I met a lot of the politicians that ran for city council in Huber Heights, so it's kind of an interesting thing to know some politicians, and they're out running and stuff like that. So
it's interesting also to see the parallels between how they go about selecting and electing its officers compared to the way we do civilian elections in midwinter. Correct me if I'm wrong. In midwinter, each district will have a caucus. They'll caucus just like political parties do. They'll have a caucus and they'll decide who they're going to support.
So we go around. It's like we have 12 districts.
Right.
So you go around for about 3 or 4 hours visiting each district and
trying to get them to support, the caucus trying to get them support. So he'll do that at convention. Of course, like I said, 3rd District, it's not official, but it would be very difficult for 3rd District not to endorse its own, their own guy. So we certainly anticipate he's going to be endorsed by 3rd District. But of course, it's not up to us. We're not officers.
One of the challenges I have is the person that won last year is also from District 3. So we're hoping that people don't have a case of the goo about, they don't want, although that didn't keep some of the other districts from having, this little triumvirate where you figure that they were entitled to the position and everything. So I was I had people that were telling me I shouldn't be doing that because we already have somebody in District 3 and we don't want to go back to back, but I've kind of ignored that because I'm going to be my own person, and people were asked, it's like, what relationship do you have with such and such? And it's like the one, he said he's his own person, and so I'm not beholden to anybody. It's like I'm going to do what I do. And
Well, I think it's, I honestly, and I know, you'd rather not have the combination, but I think it's great that there are two other candidates, that there's enough interest,
yeah.
that there's enough people going after it. But again, Jack, thank you so much for having
Thank you for
being
having me.
here,
I appreciate
for
it.
being here and sharing your story. It's a very interesting story. I'm very interested to see some of this stuff. In closing, I would like to tell you that here at the end, we'll show you the graphic of our email and Twitter account and our Facebook and YouTube account. We'll show you that graphic. Please reach out to me if you have any veteran that would like to come here and share their story. We're going to do this every Friday morning that there's school, so if there's a snow day or they're off for Thanksgiving or we're not going to have a show. But if the school's in session on Friday, we're going to have a show and we're going to interview a veteran or maybe several. It doesn't have to be just a veteran either. It could be a veteran's family, somebody that wants to tell, the veteran's gone and they still want to tell that story. We'd be more than happy to hear that. But for our first show, we're very happy to hear from Jack. Friday the 13th, and the good luck was with us. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next time.
There we go. Thanks, Jack.